Valdo, how dare you?
Hi, Cyndi. Welcome to the Vibrant Couple. This is our new Becoming a Better Woman series. And yes, I agree, this is somehow risque on my end. And I'm doing this because I want to bring more understanding between men and women. In some ways, we're very different, and in some ways, we are not. I find that this battle of the sexes war is detrimental to both men and women.
I would agree. It's not healthy for either to be at war. Love is
Mhm.
much better.
Yeah. And so, in my view, the masculine is the container, is the riverbed, and the feminine is the flow. And you seem to have both a strong masculine and a strong feminine. Please say more.
So for me, I really had to learn how to embrace much more of my feminine. I'm a child of the 80s, college educated, grew up in tech. I'm currently in biotech. So kind of a man's world, right? And I got reinforced for that. I got reinforced for my drive, my confidence, my competition, my conquering, right? My going out into the world. And what I found as I got older was I wasn't fulfilled by that. I something was missing and I didn't know what that was actually missing. And I really had to start embracing my feminine to help balance out that masculine world that I was living in.
And so, are you saying that you stop being in your masculine, or is it more that in addition to your masculine, you develop your feminine, you put it forward, you've been leading with it?
I was leading with my own version of the masculine as a woman, which from what I've witnessed out in the world is different for a man than it is for a woman. But what I was missing was that ability to receive, to deeply nurture, to connect, to return to source, right? Which is the sacred feminine, right? We come from source and we return to source, whereas a man is born into the world and goes out, right? A man doesn't return in the same way that a woman does, at least in my understanding and the way I feel it in my body. And that's the other thing is actually feeling things in my body, trusting my own deep inner wisdom, right? Instead of looking for validation and feedback from others. So partly it was my own feminine was distorted, when I was younger. And there may still be some of that now. We're evolving creatures. So I don't pretend to be perfect or have this nailed down. But there are some things I've learned.
So I'm assuming that in business, you are more collaborative and you seek less validation from, traditional masculine business. Is that correct?
I do. There's kind of a time and a place. I do something that's a little unique to me, and that is when I'm managing a team or even a project and there's other people involved, I really try to be to bring everybody together at the table in kind of like a flat organization. We're all equal. We all have something to contribute. We all have, responsibilities. We're all here for a reason. I try to get everybody aligned to the same purpose, right? Um, but then when we actually have to leave like that meeting room and go out and actually do, which is much more of the masculine, um, that's when it kind of I flip it to like that hierarchy, that triangle. Because somebody has to be responsible and accountable, right, for those actions. And it seems to work really well. And then we come back together, right, and take inventory, so to speak, right? Did everybody do what they were supposed to do? And if not, why? And if there's an issue, like something comes up from that, and this works well in relationships also, to say, okay, there's no blame here. We have an issue. Let's solve the issue, not the person, right? Like, let's really look at the problem. Again, flatten the organization. What do others see? How can they help? How can they support this person in getting these things done? And then again, it's either taking some of that off that person's plate and giving the responsibility to somebody else, or giving that person the new tools, encouragement, information to be able to actually complete the task and go back out. And again, the hierarchy flips back up, right? So
So, so what I'm hearing is a combination of masculine and feminine that you blend in your own way. I'm assuming that as a result, you are both more effective in business and everyone is happier, including you.
well, I'd like to think so. Yeah, it takes a little bit, right? This is uncommon in a lot of corporate cultures, right? It's not familiar. It takes time for both men and women to trust this way of doing things. But again, I think if you can encourage and show and just, have a leap of faith, then people really see the results and they see how quickly things can get done because there is this balance.
Wonderful. And so the vibrant couple focuses on romantic relationships. Please say more about how this, how you apply that into your own personal life.
Absolutely. I can give you an example from this morning with my fiance and I. So cute. I gotta give you a little bit of history for a second. Backtrack a couple days. He was telling me about a men's meeting that he was involved in and how he stopped and got donuts for everybody and brought them to the meeting. And I'm like, and you didn't bring me a donut? And he was like, "Mm, no, babe, like, no, I was taking donuts to the meeting for the men." And I'm like, okay, let it go, right? Like, very playfully in jest. So today he had the same men's group. And again, he went and got donuts. But today he brought me back a donut. And he walked in the house, and the first thing he did was he had it all wrapped up in a napkin. He's like, I have something for you. And I'm like, you do? And I'm like, and he opens his hands, and I'm like, is it a donut? His eyes light up and he handed it to me, and I carefully opened it in front of me, and he's like, and look what kind of donut. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's an old fashioned, one of my favorites. And he's like, and it's maple. I'm like, oh, and it's maple. Okay, do you see what I'm doing here? And I take a bite and I savor it, right? I let it melt in my mouth, and oh my gosh, this is so good. I'm so glad I haven't finished my coffee. Thank you, love, for remembering to bring me a donut, and got up and gave him a big hug and a big kiss and looked him in the eye and just said, this means the world to me. And he's beaming. So let me flip things over to you. As a man, would you be beaming in that scenario?
Oh, definitely. What I'm seeing, and I'm going to qualify that, in a heterosexual couple, is men somehow praise their wives, somehow because they have been told that they have to, but I rarely see women praise their man. And, oh, darling, you're so strong, or darling, this gift is perfect. And so I find beautiful what you did, and you did that very playfully, somehow playing the damsel in distress. Well done.
Play the reverse, right? How many women, because they haven't fully embraced their natural feminine ability to receive, right, would be like, Waldo, you know I'm trying to watch my weight. Why are you bringing me a donut? It's like, I can't eat this. And they storm off because they're all upset that, their man brought them a donut. It has nothing to do with the donut. Women, are you listening to me? Whether you eat the whole thing or you eat one little bite and when he's gone and out of the room, you throw it away, or put it down the garbage disposal. The dance that's happening there is your man has gone out into the world and conquered, even if it's a donut, right? Let's
Yeah,
like make
yeah.
this lightheartedly. And he brings it back to you, something that he knew that you wanted. I teased him a couple days ago for not bringing me home a donut. Hey, he remembered, right? I wasn't nagging him. I didn't remind him. I never even brought it up. I never even gave it a second thought. I mean, honestly. Right? That that is embracing the feminine, right? And I embraced it in several ways, that makes my heart happy to see my man happy, right? And attracted to me. And I want him to go out in the world and I want him to bring things, novel things back, or even the mundane back. It is so important. And then, like I said, reward your man for that. I mean, and I know I have been that person that was like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously, I'm on a diet and you're bringing me a donut, right? How dare you? Exactly where we're at. And there's so many ways that we emasculate our man and by doing that, right? Instead of seeing the heart of the man and the spirit that the man has gone out into the world, to retrieve, and the gifts that he's bringing back. To me, the biggest gift, honestly, what opens my heart in that moment is that he remembered me.
And that he's happy. So somehow it seems that you have found a way to somehow make each other happy. And I'm pretty sure it's not 100%, but let's not go there. And so a few minutes ago, you were somehow inviting young women to somehow learn, and women to learn to receive. I believe also it is that you have done some work over the years on knowing you have a strong masculine and somehow no longer needing it. You can somehow background it so that you can then relax in your feminine.
Yeah. I learned something about myself that caught me completely off guard. And that was that my vulnerability actually came from my masculine. Let me unpack that just a tiny bit because that's going to sound foreign to a lot of you. Most people think of vulnerability as a woman's trait or a feminine or female thing. It is not, is what I discovered in myself. Because in order for me to risk truly being vulnerable, I had to fully embrace my masculine. I had to protect myself. I had to feel safe, right? I have to have been like, fully in myself, feel capable, right, of dealing with whatever came up on the other side of being vulnerable. Um, and all of those things are actually our inner masculine qualities. But then something happens when you actually become vulnerable, right? When you're safe enough, you feel protected enough to be vulnerable and to allow your heart to open, right? It's when the structure of the male, the masculine, begins to fall down. It's safe to break apart, and you are safe to embrace the chaos, the unknowing, the possibility, right? It the novelty. And that can be terrifying for both men and women, right? To be in that vulnerability, not only with ourselves, and that's where I had to learn it first, but also with our partner. Is your partner going to attack you? Are they going to make fun of you? Are they going to try to fix you? Because honestly, you're not broken, right? None of us are. We're not perfect, but we're not broken either. Um, so it was really important and pivotal part of my journey to understand that in order for me to be vulnerable, I had to embrace those masculine qualities within myself of feeling secure and feeling safe and knowing, I had the courage to face the unknown, right, which are very masculine qualities.
And so, give me a quick timeline. How long did it take you for you to grow your masculine, to know that you felt safe, to have boundaries with the world, to know what you wanted, so then you can relax it to be able to be in your feminine? How long did that take you?
Yeah, it probably took me a good 20 plus years. I mean, not of my adult life. So,
Yeah.
add that on for my adolescence
Yeah.
um and I think spirit, the sacred, right, sets up things in our life for us to experience these types of things. And I was in a relationship prior to the one I'm in now for about 10 years. And I set myself so up in that relationship to, boy, like really have to look at my feminine. um, and, I was in a relationship with this person, and he had one version of our relationship, and I had another version of our relationship, yet we were both in the same relationship. But honestly, if you were to ask either of us to describe the relationship, you would not have thought we were the same people together in that relationship. Um, I had not learned to trust my inner wisdom, which is a deeply sacred and feminine gift. Um, he constantly tried to manipulate reality and tell me how things were, which was not my experience. I didn't trust my experience in the world. Um, And even when that relationship was coming to an end, I had a girlfriend, a very dear sister to me, say, "Are you sure you want to do this? This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm ready to leave. I know I'm done with this relationship, and ready to move on." Again, masculine, right? I get ready to move out into the world. I'll be fine, right? I crumbled. I was in so much pain because I didn't recognize what the truth was in the world, in me, in my truth. And it's where I feel like I really started to grow up as a human, is in that moment. I was no longer a wife. I was no longer a mother. My children had grown up and moved out at that point. I lost my job. I mean, it was the universe setting me up for this perfect storm, right? To say, enough, Cyndi, you got the masculine. Now it's time to rebalance. And it took me about 2 years to do that and a good therapist. So don't think you need to
Wonderful.
do this alone. You don't.
Wonderful. And I'm pretty sure that you had to be in your masculine, partially because that's what you have been told, but a lot of it is because that previous relationship, that previous man did not know how to hold the masculine for you.
No, he definitely did not. And I did not feel safe or protected or even in the end provided for. That was kind of the straw. that broke the camel's back. He separated our finances, and I'm like, you separate our finances, you pretty much reduced me to a roommate with benefits, so to speak. And it's like that is not what I want for our children. And we don't have children together, but we were both raising children from other marriages. Um, and I said, if you do that, the relationship's over, because there's nothing left here. I don't need you anymore. There was, and again, I had a skewed view of the word need. I was still exhibiting some codependent behaviors that I didn't know that I had, because, shadow. And really looking to him in certain ways. I had stopped by the end of the relationship, but inside the relationship, looking to him to fill needs that I really needed to fill myself, right?
So what is different with your new fiance?
Mm. One, I guess I did the hard work, right? I knew that even though all these great masculine qualities that I had that made me the successful businesswoman that I was, that allowed me to raise 6 kids and work full time and be PTA president and, do all of these things out in the community and, run 2 businesses, like, oh my gosh, right? Like, how is that fulfilling for the inner feminine? It wasn't. It wasn't sustainable. So what I learned is that in my relationship now, I can come home from being out in the world and I have a safe harbor. I have a safe place to land where I'm loved and I'm protected and I'm provided for in the littlest and kindest of ways by my man. So if he sees that I've worked a full day, and yes, it's usually I'm the one who takes on the cooking responsibilities, right, for the evening. If he sees that I'm tired or he knows that I've had a long day, he'll be like, let's order in or let's go out, right? And being able to receive that, because there's a part of me that's like, it's fine. I'll just make something here. I'll just throw something together really quick. I just don't even want to go back out into the world, or I want to eat my own, like whatever my reason is. But it's like, I still have to stop myself sometimes and go, Cyndi, receive. Somebody is noticing where you're at, right? Somebody's trying to, you know, take some of the burden, right?
Mhm. So
And
earlier, with the donut story, you mentioned you invited him to be in his masculine. It seems that he's really good at inviting you to be in your feminine.
he is. And it's one of those subtle things, like he knows I go, and like I think one of the things is, we can talk about feminine qualities, right? And I think some of the things that of why men are attracted to female, and one of the things is taking care of yourself, right? Being secure in yourself, knowing that, they're not going to, you know, hold on to a man and expect them to provide everything for them, right? Like in your own, be safe and confident in your own self. Also being sensual, right? But again, like that self-care, like I go and have my nails done and he'll show up at the salon and pay for it, and I won't even see him. I'll just go to pay and he'll be like, nope, it's already been taken care of. And I'm like, they're like, oh, John came in. And and those things are really sweet, and it's that completing of the circle, right? Completing of the positive and negative, the masculine and feminine, right? We both reward each other for those things that we are. And even if I'm being in my masculine, his feminine, so this could be for same-sex couples or whatever, right? You have to learn to feed the other, depending on what role each other's playing.
And
Um,
so, how much of your time, when it's just the two of you, Are you in your masculine and are you in your feminine, and the balance for him? Because I have the impression that the two of you play fairly well, both in your somehow, I would say, natural polarity, him masculine, you feminine, but also, it's not possible to be 100%.
Right.
So it seems that you play well when you somehow have that switch.
Yeah, and it's also temporary. We both have the ways that we're comfortable being ourselves, right? And I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Bottom line is I am now comfortable in my femininity. He is comfortable in his masculinity. And even when like on a day off, like he has a day off and I actually have to work on that day, right? Even though I'm going out into the world and doing that, and he's, kind of sitting at home pampering himself and doing things that are maybe a little more of a feminine nature. The minute I walk through the door, he greets me, he asks me, how my day was. And then vice versa on those days, when he walks through the door, it's like whoever embraces like the masculine too is a little bit of like the most honored guest when they return, right? And return can look like a lot of things, whether it's coming home from work, coming in from working in the yard, it's like really look at your relationship. Like, how do you return to each other? And then how do you meet that return, right? Whether you're in the masculine or the feminine. It's something worthwhile to play with.
Wonderful. And so, if you were to give one piece of advice to the women listening and one piece of advice to the men listening so that they can somehow move forward along on that journey that took you 20 years, what would you tell them?
Oh, I think the most important thing is recognize who you are as a sovereign individual in the relationship, right? Even in times when we're being needy or bitchy or angry, or whatever that is that's causing tension in the relationship, right? I think the most damaging thing we do is projection, and it's very hard to not project onto the ones we love. But as much as you can own yourself, own your actions, own what you feel, own that there's another person in the room with you that you're affecting, right? Positively or negatively. And realize that you may think you don't have a choice sometimes. But if you slow down, honestly, if you slow down and just be with whatever that tension is, right? It will help guide you. There's tension because our inner wisdom is screaming at us and we're not listening. And again, yes, that's feminine, but men have that inside themselves also, right? And they can embrace it. They have their own wise man inside, just like we have our own wise woman. And I think if we just slowed down a little bit more and really took ownership, right, and looked for the truth in the situation, then that opens so much space for the other, whoever the other may be, to go, oh, there's something going on right now, and the other person has themselves, right? So I can be here lovingly. I've got some stuff going on inside me too right now. Okay, I got my stuff. Is this something we can deal with now, or is this something that we need to separate for a few minutes and then come back together, right? And then whoever starts, whether it be the man, the woman, the other man, the other woman, however that is, whoever starts, the other, please, 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 if you take anything away, just listen. Start by just listening, not listening to answer, not listening to fix, not listening to blame or to judge. You may have all that going on in your own head while you're listening to this person. Just let it play out. Just let it play out. Listen. When they're done, or they stop to pause to ask you a question, don't answer right away. I take 3 seconds before you answer. Just 3. Just count to 3. 1, 2, 3, right? Then formulate your answer. Or if it wasn't a question that it was ended on, then try from your perspective to say, all right, love, this is what I heard you say. Did I get that right? Do you have anything to add? Is there anything more? These open-ended questions. We do this in business all the time. For those businesswomen listening in, we ask these kinds of questions day in and day out, and somehow we come home and we forget to ask them in our relationship. We forget to be our own boss in our relationship, right? Which is the sexiest thing to both sexes. Just be your own boss, right? I'm not your boss. I'm not the boss of you, you know? And at the same time, right? Come together, give each other what each other needs, listen, love, receive, give space, right? It's a dance. It's always a dance.
So what I'm hearing is your invitation is to become more mature adults that better know how to relate. And the masculine feminine polarity is one of the ways you somehow enhance each other. But this is not somehow something that is forced upon any of you. This is something that both of you choose and you somehow adapt to it in the moment. Sometimes you are in the feminine, sometimes you are in the masculine.
Absolutely. That's a great way to say that, Valdo. Like you have to know both inside yourself, right? And then you're going to have your own wiring, right? Whether you're in a heterosexual relationship or you're in a same-sex relationship, right? You have the way that you are, and there's always the polarity, right? There's always that positive and negative play with each
I
other.
disagree. I disagree. I see so many people, so many couples who have no polarity. And
Mhm.
basically, I'm going to take an example of a heterosexual couple. He brings his feminine, his masculine. She brings her feminine and her masculine, and they have an ugly foursome. And so
It's because when they come together, they're not embracing the other,
they are
right?
not. And so they have
Their
not.
masculines are clashing with their masculine, and their feminines are clashing with their feminines, and they're not doing this. Like that's
Exactly.
literally what it is. It's like when your spouse, your partner, your lover, your friend, even your friend, right, is in that in if you can recognize it, right, and then embrace the opposite of where they're at, right, in that conversation, in that situation or whatnot, you're going to have a lot more draw to each other than if you're battling heads. Now, there's a time and a place for that, right? Like, men get together and men challenge each other, right? And they grow from that. And there is a certain thing about that. and that's pushing them to be better than they are. And women, we come together, right, and we bring people in, and we nurture and we connect, right, and that's what we do together as women. um so that's the other thing is if you are stronger in one than the other, you resonate with one more than the other. And when I say resonate, I mean what fills you up, what gives
Mhm.
you vitality, right? Um, Not just what you're doing because that's what you know and has been reinforced by your parents, society, school, not that, like truly inside yourself. Um, that will help, right? It will help you to know that, because that's where you're going to go for your nourishment. That's where you're going to go to come back to yourself and figure that out. Like, it's worth it to yourself to figure that out. Where do you come home to? How much masculine, how much feminine do you need in your life to feel at home? And this may change, right? Like from when you're younger to when you're older. Are you raising kids? Are you not raising kids? But I think, to your point, I get it. And then some people are just so codependent, Valdo, that it doesn't really matter what they do, that there's so much toxic masculine and toxic feminine in the way that they're really not going to work through that unless they, have a good therapist or are in, couples counseling or things like that, because they're both just stuck in their patterns.
So that's where you were talking about two sovereign, mature beings.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Cyndi, I'm glad I dared. And I'm glad I dared inviting you because it was a wonderful conversation and I'm hoping it benefits many. Thank you.
Thank you, Valda, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's been a delight.
If this conversation with Cyndi inspired you to better understand the masculine feminine polarity, please hit the like button below and subscribe so you can be notified when I publish new juicy content. Also, please share with anyone you believe would benefit. I look forward to seeing you very soon.